What is going on, everybody? You are back. I'm balling over beers, and this is the NFL show. As you can tell, I'm joined by my guys, a.k.a. Howe and James Fitch. But before we bring them in, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, you're smashing that like button. And in the comments, you tell us what we're going to be talking about today now. There's a little bit of Aaron Rodgers, a little bit of Cam Akers news. Where do you have Darrell Henderson as a running back overall for season long? But AK, what's going on, man?
Oh, not much. I've actually been staring at your little musket mug behind you, trying to figure out what the hell that is.
I can tell you, actually. It is a mug that says this is the revolver that shot Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
It literally says Lincoln was shot with the .44 caliber Derringer.
So are you celebrating Lincoln's death? Is that what you're doing?
I'm just, trying to remember Lincoln because he's the man. James, what's up, dude?
We need to commemorate that on a coffee mug.
Yeah, well, it's more of like a beer sign. So I just thought I saw it at a second time store and I was like, dude, I've gotta have this. I don't want it. I have to have it.
That's ridiculous. I am looking at lines for week 1, and AK, as you pointed out, they have like DraftKings has lines up for like multiple weeks. Maybe you said it's all 17, 18 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if it was DraftKings, but I saw a site came out with lines for every game.
I'm looking at DraftKings right now, and it looks like they have lines up for every game.
Wow. That is impressive. I mean, the Hall of Fame game is 15 days away, right? So August 5th.
Yeah.
As we record this on Wednesday night. So I mean, we're 2 weeks away from football actually being on the TV. And this time of year, training camp. This is torn ACL and injury season, and unfortunately, we've already had a big one. And that was Cam Akers, tore his Achilles, actually working out on his own. Rams haven't reported yet or anything, but huge blow to the Rams. But I would say more to the fantasy community, as I don't think their win total moved at all or their odds moved at all after the injury to Cam Akers. But fantasy-wise, people were actually pretty stoked for him, myself included. I actually put out a tweet that day that was asking, does he have basically a better chance to finish as RB1 or as RB10? Because I was going to kind of lay out the plan, the path where I think he could have finished as RB1, and then that day injury strikes, and someone on Twitter actually called me out. They're like, "Whoa, dude, chill out with those powers." So I was like, "Yeah, that's a rough one." But let's talk Cam Akers. I guess let's start just initial thoughts, James. When you hear that, what do you think that does right away to the fantasy scope, I guess?
Yeah, so we saw him going in best ball, and I would think in redraft leagues too. He's probably a late first round pick, maybe early second round pick. So if you're drafting on one of those spots and looking for a running back, or that's kind of your strategy, you're losing a key player there. So that's a big blow.
Huge. AK, what about you? Kind of initial reaction?
Fantasy wise, I was kind of not mad. I was more happy because I have 0 shares of Cam Akers in all my best ball leagues. So selfishly, I was a little happy, but it sucks for the Rams, sucks for the people that did draft Cam Akers. And I like Cam Akers a lot more than I like Henderson going into the year.
We're going to get into Henderson here in a second. Go ahead.
If I can just jump in quick. I mean, I don't think it's going to affect the Rams that much, just from an overall game standpoint. It's a tough blow to lose a starter at any position, but if you're going to lose a starter at any position, running back, I think, is a position where you can make do, especially this early in the season.
Yeah, and with me, I look at Henderson, and he was a pretty high. He was a 3rd round draft pick coming out of college. He competed with Tony Pollard for carries at Memphis, but he had a pretty good skill set coming out of college and really hasn't hit his stride. He had an okay last year in a backup type role, but we'll go through the numbers here in a bit. We've seen him where he's gotten quite a bit of touches, where he's getting 12, 15 plus touches a game, and he's been productive with them, right? For me, it actually helps my dynasty team, quite a bit, because I have Henderson sitting there as one of my running backs, and that helps me. But obviously, you don't ever want to root for injuries. That's not what we're here for. But let's talk about Henderson and those numbers. Last year, we saw him in 6-7 games where he had 12 or more carries, 12 or more touches, and in those games he was highly productive. Right, against Buffalo, he averaged 5.7 a carry off of 20 touches, over 100 yards, had a touchdown, had 3 targets in the game. Against the San Francisco 49ers, 6.29 yards a carry on 14 carries. He had 63 yards against Chicago for 4.2 average. He had 62 yards against Seattle on 12 carries, 5-yard average. So on the year, he averaged 4.5 yards a carry. He had over 600 yards rushing. The big thing there wasn't he didn't have the targets. I guess we'll start. Schefter's kind of tweeted out, AK, that he doesn't see the Rams going in and signing a veteran guy. Now, he's saying that, but do you think that they stay with that, or do you think that they go out and look for a veteran back like Todd Gurley, Adrian Peterson, Le'Veon Bell type?
I'm not sure if they want to bring anyone in as a RB1 to compete for Henderson, but I could see them bringing someone in as the secondary back, because if you look at their depth chart now, it gets pretty low, weak behind Henderson. So I wouldn't be surprised if they, maybe a younger guy that they want to take a flyer on, but I don't think they're going to bring anyone in to compete for the RB1 position.
James, if they bring in any of those guys, do you think that hurts Henderson's fantasy value?
No, not by much. The only name that I think that it's been brought up, but Duke Johnson's the one that makes the most sense. I don't think McCoy, Gurley, Bell, I don't think any of those guys really make sense. But a guy like Duke Johnson, I think, is a serviceable guy that can come in and kind of take some passing down work. But I wouldn't feel too threatened even with him coming in if I were a Henderson owner. The rest of I don't think his backups are all rookies or undrafted free agents, and I don't think there's another running back on the roster right now that has a single carry in the NFL right now. So I think as a Henderson owner, I'd be feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at with it as well. I don't think that if they bring somebody in like one of those guys, it's going to do too much to him. But what could hurt him, like you were saying, is like a Duke Johnson, that if he gets brought in and is all of a sudden the guy, that is getting all the pass receptions, that's what's going to really, really hurt his production and why we would like Henderson so much. So I went in and toyed with my projections a little bit, and I was pretty conservative, I thought, on mine. I gave him a 55% market share. I boosted up the yards per carry because I feel like that the Rams offense is going to be efficient and they're going to be good. They have Stafford. They're going to be able to throw the ball and have that threat of throwing the ball where people aren't going to be able to just load the box or maybe pressure as much as they did against Goff. I gave him an 8% market share of receptions. And, the numbers that came out, I got him at running back 14 right now with a little over 1,100 yards rushing, but only, 34 catches for 330 yards. So, but RB14, that puts him in the same territory as like a Najee Harris, a J.K. Dobbins, and a Clyde Edwards-Helaire as those guys' average draft position right now. James, if you're looking at the option between those 4 guys, Darrell Henderson, Najee Harris, J.K. Dobbins, CEH, where are you looking between those 4 guys?
I would probably take Henderson, Najee, CEH, Dobbins last, I think. So I think he's probably my favorite out of that group. Najee is the unproven guy. Dobbins is competing with Gus Edwards, with Lamar, and CEH. CEH is kind of the biggest unknown to me. Didn't have the greatest of rookie years, but has potential on a high performing offense.
Yep. AK, do you think those projections that I have there with the 55% market share, 1,100 yards, does that make sense to you? Because I mean, I think everybody right now is thinking that the Rams are going to have a pretty good offense, and I know you're pretty high on Stafford.
Yeah, I think your rushing stats are pretty accurate. I think he only finishes in the 20s for receptions, which doesn't change that much. But if you look at Cam Akers, he only had 11 receptions last year, and Henderson had 16. So if you combine them, that's 27. And I don't know if Stafford's really, with their weapons and McVay's offense, they don't really throw to the running backs that often. So you're looking at, 22 to 30 receptions, where if you're in a full PPR league, there's guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire I'd take over him in a heartbeat.
Right. So, and we'll get there in a second, but I'm probably higher on CH right now, and I think you're getting crazy value on him. But James, the one thing that I keep thinking of, though, with Henderson is with the backups that they have, if they don't bring anybody in, say he ends up getting 65% of the market share, and he ends up getting 12% of the market share of receptions. I mean, Todd Gurley, when he was the workhorse in this offense, was a total stud. Is that something that you could see him end up doing if he ends up getting this kind of work? Or is it just Todd Gurley was a better player before his knees died?
No.
And,
I think he's in the right situation. He's got the right offensive-minded coach, solid quarterback, just a great offense. I could see him finishing inside of the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a very clear path for him to finish inside the top 10. It was 2018 that Todd Gurley completely blew up, right? He had 17 touchdowns on the ground with over 1,200 yards rushing, and he had another 59 catches for 580 yards and another 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, go ahead.
I think Gurley's anytime touchdown prop that season was like minus 400 every week.
Yeah, so, dude, it was just a touchdown machine. Like he was one of those guys that if you had him on your fantasy team, it almost didn't matter who else you had because he was just scoring so many points every week. But like I do think that Henderson has that that path right now that if he ends up being the guy, he could put up some seriously crazy good numbers if the Rams offense is as good as we think it's going to be, which I have reason to believe it's going to be pretty good.
Where do you think his ADP ends up for season long? Are we talking third round?
Yeah, I think that's right. What I was going to say was third round, and I think that seems pretty fair. Now, if with what I was talking about before, with those projections that I had where he came out as running back 14, we talked about the running backs that he was around. That puts him in the same wide receiver range, like overall, as a Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Michael Thomas. AK, when you hear those receiver names, are you thinking that you value those receivers before Henderson, or would you take Henderson before those guys?
I would take all those receivers before Henderson. I'm not as big on Henderson as you guys are. I wasn't as big on Cam Akers as a lot of people. I just think the upside is pretty low. I don't see the projection of getting an RB1 like you did for Cam Akers, but I'd rather take all those receivers, especially in a PPR league, a full PPR league at that, just because the receptions are just so low coming out of the Rams backfield the last 2 years.
James, what about you? Would you take those receivers before Henderson, or are you, all of them same thing?
Yeah, I would. It would depend on my roster construction. I'm typically a guy, I think we've talked about it before, that likes to go running back heavy early.
Right.
So it's going to depend on my roster construction, but all of those wide receiver names would be names that I'd look to grab before a guy like Henderson. I don't think Henderson's ADP should be in the third round. I'm not looking to grab a guy like him in the third round. I don't think, even though I had said that I ranked him higher than all those other names, I'd rather take those receivers there. But I can see if he's a guy that is still there in the fourth or fifth round, he'd be a guy I'd be looking to grab.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I am with him. And the thing is, to me too, if other people, like if you're doing a season long redraft league, and other people are hesitant to draft him, and he ends up falling to the fourth or fifth, I think that you're going to get that's really good value to me. Like I said, he has the potential to be an RB1 top 10 type guy if he gets the market share of touches, and the volume is king, in fantasy. So I think if you get him later than the third, I do think that there's a lot of value on him right there. I just want to talk real quick about DK Metcalf because he was in that range. I came across the stat the other day, and I was pretty shocked by it. The last 3 games of the year, he had 7, 9.8, and 8.6 yards reception. In his last 4 games, he had 2.33, 7.3, 7.1, and 7.6 yards per target, which is just a crazy drop off from what he had for the first 13 weeks. In the first 13 weeks, he didn't have anything below double digits in yard per reception, and he only had single digits 4 times in the first 13 weeks, 4 yards per target. Do you think that those last 4 weeks are defenses starting to catch on and realize that Metcalf is a guy that's just going to run, verticals and deep overs and comebacks, and he's not really going to have a prolific route tree, and they're just saying, we're just going to put a guy over the top and make you throw underneath to him and tackle him? Do you think teams are figuring him out, AK? And do you think that hurts his value?
I don't know if teams are figuring him out per se, because everyone kind of knew that whole route tree thing from his rookie year on. I just think the Seahawks offense just played completely different towards the end of the year. I would own DK last year, and it just seemed watching the games. I haven't gone back and watched tape or anything, but just off my memory, they just seemed like a completely different offense the last half of the year compared to the first half of the year.
I think that's pretty fair. I had Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, so I definitely get that. James, what about you? Is that something that you think defenses are kind of figuring it out, or is it just the Seahawks maybe O-line issues didn't give them time to hit those deep vertical routes? Or
I would agree with what AK said. I think the let Russ cook movement ended after the first half of the season. I think a lot of people are scratching their heads, and as you put it, there may have been injuries that really changed their thought process on that. Maybe heading into the playoffs, they wanted to shore up the run game and play defense, and really change their approach. I think AK nailed it. I think coming out of college, that was just kind of the knock on DK, right? Is that he can just run straight lines, and that's pretty much it. So I don't think it took long to figure that stuff out. I just think for whatever reason they changed their offense.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to say, just with the yards per attempt there, all that takes is one deep ball, and his numbers are crazy different. So, one deep ball in any of those weeks, which, I mean, it didn't happen, but 40, 50-yard attempt to him, whether he catches it or drops it, now the numbers are back in double digits. They just didn't take as many deep shots the second half of the year.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that it just sticks into my head, with him is like if that's their thought process going forward, and that's how defenses are going to play him. Like, I don't know how you take him before a Justin Jefferson or an AJ Brown or maybe even a Michael Thomas. Now, Michael Thomas has questions of his own at the quarterback position, and we'll get there in a bit, but. I just thought that was interesting, and I figured I'd bring it up since we were talking about him in that range. So why don't we'll close out of the Darrell Henderson thoughts. AK, do you think he finishes inside the top 10 or top 15, or where do you think he finishes around?
I think at best he's a top end RB2. One thing I was going to say is they're not looking at any free agents now, but in the next couple of weeks, there's going to be some running backs cut from teams. Just look at like the Tender Cardinals that have pretty deep running back rooms. You could see someone maybe like Rex Burkhead or cut that they might pick up as a third down back, which would take away a lot of his carries. So if I was drafted now, I'd kind of stay away from him. But if nothing else changes, I can see him being a top end RB2.
I know a lot of people were speculating on the rumor that they should go trade for like Melvin Gordon or something too, which wouldn't make any sense to me because Melvin Gordon is not good to me. But James, what about you? Where do you think he finishes up?
I think I think he finishes an RB2. I think he has late RB1 potential, but I think he's going to be middle of the road, like RB18, somewhere in that range.
I think he's gonna be a little bit higher
18.
than that. I'll take him in the 10 to 15 range. I think he has a chance to finish as an RB1, depending on how that kind of shakes out and stuff. And I guess real quick, are you looking at an Xavier Jones or Jake Funk, who are their two backup running backs that all in like a best ball situation? Xavier Jones undrafted out of SMU, pretty good wiggle on his film, not a huge guy. And then the Jake Funk thing. So I had no idea who he was. I had to Google him. I had to look him up. His RAS score, so his raw athletic score, was the 37th best all time for any running back since 1984, which kind of blew me away. He's 5'10", about 205 out of Maryland. Do you have any interest in either of these guys in late rounds in basketball, AK?
I would take a flyer in the last round on one of those guys. It's always nice to, if you can get an RB2 in the 20th round, why not go for it? Never know what's going to happen with injuries or someone just emerges out of the blue in training camp to become the third down back or something like that.
James?
Probably not. I mean, I don't see the harm in taking a flyer, but as AK put it, they could sign somebody to kind of come in as the RB2 anyway. So I'd rather take a guy on a team that we already know is an RB2. An example would be, I forget McCaffrey. Who's McCaffrey's backup now?
Chuba?
Yeah, somebody like him. That's likely just going to be the direct handcuff there. I'd take a flyer on somebody like that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Even like a Alexander Madison or something like that seems like a better chance of being able to have big time plays. But what if I told you that Funk is white and he could be the next White Rhino? We haven't seen Peyton Hillis in a long time. He could be the Peyton Hillis reborn. Does that do anything for you?
As long as he gets one good season and ends up on Madden and just completely falls off the face of the earth, I'm good with it.
Dude, get the Madden cover. The Chiefs goes to the Chiefs. I was so hyped, and he was so bad.
Yeah. Mistakes were made.
The Browns were made. The Browns produced a couple 1-year flashes in the last couple of years. The White Rhino, Terrell Pryor.
I was pretty big on Pryor. Pryor got paid pretty good.
I know you were.
For that Brown season too.
Derek Anderson
is making the rounds, trying to grind it out on money qualifiers and the Korn Ferry Tour to become a professional golfer.
Is he?
Yes, he is. Saw that the other day. I was like, oh, no shit.
Last question on Darrell Henderson. What do you have his dynasty trade value at right now? If you're trading away or trading for him?
So I have him right now. I mean, I would try to, if I was trading him, I would try to get a first to see if anybody was dumb enough to do that. Do I think he's worth the first? Probably not. I mean, I could see a second. I think a second round in dynasty is fair.
I think a second round is fair for a competing team. I was just offered a first and third for him. I was like, get out of here. That's not even close to.
That's a little steep.
Yeah.
If I'm a team that I feel, if I'm a running back away from, seriously competing, I'd give up a late round first and not feel bad about it.
Same.
Those late round firsts you don't know what you're going to get there. Not every draft is equal, and running backs are hard to come by. So if you can get a starting running back for a 1.8 through a 1.12, I don't think that's bad. And
honestly, that's kind of the path that I took to win last year's championship. It was 2 years ago. I traded off all my draft assets to get proven players that I thought were going to perform, and it ended up working out. And now a couple years down the road here, I'm going to be and probably the next year or two, I'm going to be needing to get some of those draft capital back. But I won the championship, and that's all you're trying to do, right? You're trying to win every single year. So I got my championship. That's all that matters. But let's talk recent NBA champion Aaron Rodgers, owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, part owner, I should say. The talks all offseason, and we've touched on this a few times, and James has said the entire time basically he's playing, and it's recent comments really kind of seems like that. So let's talk about if he plays, and we'll start right with him. If he plays, where does he finish at quarterback, James?
Where is he playing?
No, where does he finish? Like if he plays, say he plays for the Packers, where does he finish ranked for quarterbacks on the year for season long?
He's definitely quarterback one. I think he's in the top 5.
Okay.
I don't see how it's going to be tough for him to put up the year that he did last year, but I can't really see a huge setback.
What about you, AK? Where do you think?
I have him as 3 behind Stafford and Mahomes.
So you have Mahomes, Stafford, and Rodgers?
Yeah, I'm really big on Stafford this year.
Okay, that's fair enough. So right now, in my projections, I have him a little bit lower than that. But I see that, obviously he could finish right now. His ADP as well is he's going as quarterback 8. So to me, quarterback 8 for Aaron Rodgers, that seems like a pretty fair price. He's going behind guys like Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson. It's tough when you talk about the first few quarterbacks, the Mahomes, Josh Allen's, Kyler Murray's, Lamar, Dak. Those are the top 5 guys for ADP because of the rushing upside. Do you think that with that, James, those guys that have the rushing upside are just always going to be valued more than a Rodgers, where we just saw Rodgers come off, one of the most efficient quarterbacking years in recent memory for his position and his age?
Yeah, I think that's where fantasy is trending with those quarterbacks, especially if you're in. I know a lot of leagues are shifting towards the 4-point passing. So the rushing quarterbacks have more value in those leagues. I tend to head in that direction when drafting a quarterback is getting a guy with rushing upside. It's just a cheat code.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is the rushing just adds so much value, and it's just it provides such a floor for you to live off of every single week. And with Rodgers, I think it's a pretty much given. He's going to be a quarterback 1, and when you're talking about the difference between the 6th quarterback and the 12th quarterback, you're not getting that much of a huge difference. But where it does affect fantasy is when, if he doesn't play compared to where he does play for the pieces that are around him, right? Your Aaron Joneses, your AJ Dillons, your Devontae Adams. We're going with that he's playing right now. Right now Devontae Adams seems like he's pretty good value. AK, if he plays, where does that vault Devontae Adams as far as a receiver? Is he back in the top 5? Is he top 2?
He's definitely going to be top 5, and I think he would be, I don't want to say the safest receiver, but at the position you're taking him, and if you're drafting him, mid-second, late second, like you see him going in some drafts, I would feel much safer taking him with the 19th pick overall than someone in the early first or late first, early second. I just feel he's a much safer pick at that position.
Yeah, to me right now with the projections that I have, he's going to finish as wide receiver 1 or 2, because if Rodgers plays, he's going to get so many targets. Do you think, James, with what we kind of saw last year, do you think that Devontae would lead the NFL in targets, or would a guy like maybe a Calvin Ridley or somebody? Because I could see either of them, but man, it's tough to ignore because the Packers didn't add any pieces right? It's still Allen Lazard and MBS out there.
Yeah, no, I think he's a top 2 or 3 guy with targets. Like you said, there's TD Tunyon and Aaron Jones. Like I don't know who else these targets are going to. So I definitely think he's up there. I think if Rodgers is the guy, is the quarterback, I could see. I think right now, kind of, we see Tyreek Hill going above him as the wide receiver 1 ADP in drafts, and I could see that flip flopping to Devontae Adams if Rodgers is known to be the guy.
Yeah, and a lot of the drafts that I've been doing, I've also seen, you'll see a guy like a Stephon Diggs sneak in there as wide receiver 2, with Adams slipping out, it's the second round sometimes. So who do you think, James, who do you think Aaron Rodgers being there affects more? Does it affect Aaron Jones more or Devontae Adams?
Adams,
yeah, that's kind of where I am as well, because I feel like whether Rodgers is there or not, they're still going to use Aaron Jones to get the carries. Do you think that, I guess, how much do you think it affects like an AJ Dillon, AK, if Aaron Rodgers is there or not? Because I feel like with him there, it could make AJ Dillon less valuable, where he's not as much as a pass catcher. He's probably going to get just more rushes where he's not going to be catching the ball.
I think AJ Dillon is not really a fantasy thought this year for me at all, depending on who the quarterback really is. Maybe if Jordan Love is there, they might run some kind of weird offense with, more RPOs and getting a couple different backs and spelling people. But if Rodgers is there, I have no interest in AJ Dillon at all, especially with Aaron Jones still there. I think they want to just run his legs right to the ground for the next couple of years and move on from him.
Yeah. So right now, looking at my projections, I think Aaron Jones at a little bit too high of a market share. James, where do you think that he would come in as far as rushes for market share? Is it 55? Is it 60? Is it 65%? Is he going to be the guy that's getting the bulk of the touches, or are they going to try to mix in AJ Dillon a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's got to be in the 55 to 60% range. I don't think they have a guy like Jamal Williams that can. I just don't think Dillon is that type of player that can do. A guy like Jamal Williams was basically Aaron Jones light. Like, he come in and basically play the same role, and Dillon's not that guy. So I think Jones's share has to be a little bit higher than it was last year. And I don't know what that was last year, but I feel like Jamal ate into a lot of his work.
Oh, for sure. I agree. And I think that's, when you think about Jamal, I think that's kind of, he actually hurts like a DeAndre Swift with the Lions, because he does have that 3-down ability and pass catching ability. I'm gonna knock Jones down because I had him over 60% for the market share, but I do think that's a little bit less. I do think he does a lot more work in the receiving game because of Williams being gone. So I'm going to change that a little bit. Now, for the second pass catcher, I mean, it's still, I said, MVS or Allen Lazard. Are these guys viable at all, AK, in season long?
Season long best ball, yes. Especially if you're doing a Packers stack, because they're going to get, those games where they're going to catch 1 or 2 80-yard touchdowns. If you can get 3 receptions for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's huge in best ball. But for season long, maybe as like your 8th or 9th receiver, and if you, God forbid, you get a bunch of injuries, you just take flyers. But other than that, I have no interest other than best ball.
James, if you had to choose one or the other, who would it be?
I'm taking MBS, but neither of those guys are guys I'm looking to add to my roster in a season-long, managed league. I'd rather take a shot on a rookie wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm right on the same page as you guys. I think I just don't know, how much value they actually have, and I guess the last guy is it worth just taking a flyer on Amari Rogers because he's the unknown piece for those receivers? He's a rookie out of Clemson. We haven't really seen him. Some people have compared him to Randall Cobb. We've seen him effective with, Cobb was effective with Rodgers. Is he, you know who Lazard is, you know who MDS is. Is it worth maybe taking a shot on Rodgers instead of those two guys, James?
Not for me.
No, AK?
I own Rodgers in best ball just because of what you're saying, all the comparisons to Cobb. And I've been banking in best ball that Rodgers is coming back. So
Yep.
I've been stacking the Packers and, taking the late round flyers on those three receivers and then trying to pair him with Devontae in the late first.
Have you been stacking Aaron Rodgers with Broncos wide receivers in the event that he possibly gets traded?
I have
That is the move.
I did in one league, but I took Adamson early, but then I also took Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant in that.
Yeah.
So I was kind of banking both sides.
Playing both sides of the fence. Yeah, something I saw somebody tweet that made a lot of sense to me was Rodgers will be back this year and play for the Packers. And like this was with all the reports coming out that he turned down the 2-year deal, and then he'll get traded next year to somewhere, which I could see happening. I think this year he plays for the Packers. Obviously maybe we'll see what happens here coming up with training camp in the next few weeks, but I think he's going to play, whether he reports to training camp or not.
Did you guys see the reports that one of the main reasons he got mad was because they cut Jake Kamara?
No.
Because he was like good friends with him and he really liked him and he was praising how good he was. And then like 8 hours later, they just cut him without even talking to him about it. So he got like pissed off and was just.
Did he play for Buffalo? Did he play for Buffalo last year?
Yeah, I think he was on the Bills roster.
Got a touchdown pass for the Bills, I think, against Denver.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually.
Bold. That is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Bold prediction team for Aaron Rodgers next year if it's not Green Bay. What do you think?
Raiders.
AK?
Well, I'm just going to say Philadelphia since they're in talks about Deshaun Watson.
Steelers.
They trade for both those guys.
I'm going to go with the Steelers.
I don't know, dude. Big Ben's coming back looking svelte.
He's looking like a snack.
Dude, that dude went on a full kale diet or something. I don't know.
I think he's got one. I think Big Ben's got 1 year and he's done. But I think Pittsburgh will have a lot of cap room next year. So I think I can see him trying to make a move.
That would be certainly interesting if that was the case. I could, I say Raiders and I'm thinking Vegas, close to LA. He's got, his fiance or wife or whoever she is, the actress there. So they kind of would be close to each other out there. I don't know.
I can see it.
Play narratives. Last thing we want to talk about here, Saints and their quarterback situation. So all offseason it has been, Jameis or Taysom Hill, AK's boy Taysom. And the recent reports that are coming out is that Taysom Hill actually might have more of a path to the starting quarterback job than people are really thinking at this point. James, what is going on here?
I think he's earned, not in my opinion, but I think in Peyton's eyes, he's probably earned the opportunity to have the starting job. I mean, he was 3-1 as a starter last year. He knows the offense. I personally think it should be Jameis with Taysom sprinkled in here and there, like they've done with Drew Brees in the past. I just think, even with Jameis's turnover concerns, he just gives you the most upside. I mean, he can turn Michael Thomas into something more than just a possession receiver, catching passes 10 yards down the field. I think you've got a great wide receiver and you can get more out of him. And you've got a quarterback like Jameis that has the arm that Drew Brees didn't have. So I think you need to go with a guy like that that's going to give you more upside. Taysom is Teddy Bridgewater light. Like he's like a game manager. I don't think there's a lot of upside there. He's just not a quarterback to me.
Yeah, clearly AK must have had to take that call. So see AK. No, what my big question is like for fantasy purposes, one, do you want either of these guys on your team? And two, guys like Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Latavius Murray, who is under center that gives those guys the best opportunity to be fantasy viable?
It's Jameis.
I think that's me too. Like I don't understand how, like with me, Taysom is so like limited as a quarterback, right? Yes, he was 3-1 as a starter, which is the Saints are a good football team. They have a good roster. They're good. They're well coached, obviously. So it doesn't shock me, that he went 3-1. You think about the Chiefs. The Chiefs won a playoff game with Chad Henne finishing the game because they're a good football team and they're well coached.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what Teddy Bridgewater's record was the year before when he filled in. I don't think he lost a game.
Right. No, I don't think he did. So like that's my thing. Like I feel like it's easy to step in for a two or 3 game stretch and be an effective backup quarterback if you have a good supporting cast and you have good coaching. If you're a good football team, being the starting role is just totally different. Teams are going to be scouting. They're going to know what you're good at. They're going to, know situations. They're going to be able to take those things away. And, Taysom, he didn't put up terrible numbers in the games that he started. Not great in a couple, 18 of 23 for 233 against Atlanta, 9 for 16 for 78 yards against Denver, which is pretty awful. 27 of 37 for 232 the second time versus Atlanta. And I mean, that's the other thing. That's two games versus Atlanta right there for 2 of those 3 wins. And then 28 of 38 for 291 and 2 touchdowns against Philadelphia. So, not terrible numbers, but again, to me, we've watched Jameis Winston. I mean, the dude is the human highlight reel, 30 picks, 30 touchdowns. You never know. But I think in Sean Payton's offense, right, he'll be more able to not do those interceptions. Wasn't the big thing that first-year quarterbacks on Bruce Arians offense, usually throw a ton of interceptions?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reputation.
So that's kind of where I am. I'm right there with you on that situation.
They're streamers. Both those guys are streamers. I don't think either of those guys, even if Jameis is cleared and named the starter heading into the season, he's a streamer for me.
Yeah, same. I don't think he's worthy of an actual pick. So, any other news or anything you want to touch on or final thoughts before we get out of here?
Week 1, Seattle Seahawks at Indianapolis Colts. Seattle is +2, +125 on the money line. Are we smashing Seattle?
Man, +2 at +125?
Yeah.
Where did you say the game was?
It's in Indianapolis.
Okay.
It's week 1 though.
I mean, that puts a lot of like faith in that Carson Wentz is going to be like good.
Yeah, I was just scrolling through the lines and I'm like, I love that Seattle money line.
That puts a lot of faith in Carson Wentz. That's pretty surprising, to be honest.
I also like Cowboys Bucks. So that's the season opener Thursday night. The over-under's at 52 right now. I kind of want to smash the over. Starting to get that itch.
Just hammer the over. That is an over for sure. I mean, that's 2 of the best offenses, right? That everybody's talking about. The offenses that everybody wants to have a part of. And the over-unders, that's going to go off. By the time that game kicks off, the over-under is going to be like 58.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be at least 56, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look, and this is probably just like anecdotal, but like I don't know. Like I feel like those first games are usually high-scoring games. I'd have to go back and look. I have zero data to back that up. It's just off. I think part of that's the
feeling right now.
Well, part of that's the Chiefs have been in the last 2, right?
Right.
I know they played Houston last year, and the year before I don't remember who they played, but I feel like those have been high-scoring games. Yeah, I like the over there.
All right, so you had last year week 1.
It's like 30-something to 20-something, right?
34-20.
34-20.
Yeah, 34-20 against the Texans. I mean, you also had Seahawks, Falcons 38-25. The Ravens put 38 up on the Browns. The Raiders, Panthers was 34-30. The Packers, Vikings was 43-34.
Is this all week 1 games?
All week 1 games.
Yeah.
Bucks, Saints was 34-23.
No preseason.
Right.
I wonder if that has something to do with it.
That's true. Maybe a little less practices for the defenses. Offenses were actually finally ahead.
Yeah.
That is interesting. That'll be something to look into, though. But that's an over. That's a definite over. That's gonna
those are two early games that I like. I also like Dallas +6 in that matchup too.
Yeah, 6 is a lot.
Excited.
Brady apparently played with a partially torn MCL.
I'm rolling my eyes because do you know what I'm gonna say?
No, but it's already funny because that was when I read that, I was like, oh my God, come on.
Well, you don't ever hear about that until after the fact.
Yeah.
Like it's never right after it happens. So it's, he came out and won a Super Bowl, and then it's like, yeah, and he also did that.
Yeah.
With 2 broken legs.
Right. It's like, dude, it wasn't fully torn. It probably was. Could have been a little partial tear in the MCL, but obviously for a guy who's not a mobile running guy, even that, like most people are going to be able to play through that.
Yeah.
It's
real
just
quick. One other interesting line would be Green Bay Saints. So Green Bay right now, it's at New Orleans. Green Bay's +1. If Rodgers is named the starter, what does that change to?
Yeah, I think it goes. I mean, it's got to go at least to what? 3?
I was going to say 2.5, 3. 2.5 to 3.5. Green Bay favorite.
Do you think it matters too who the Saints name as quarterback? Would that?
You know what? Actually, no, I don't think that'll change. I wouldn't think that would change the line that much.
That's so hard. To me, it's almost like Taysom. To me, you might think that with Taysom, it stays as a closer line, and with the reputation of Winston having the turnovers, it might go to a larger line just because they're thinking, oh, maybe if Winston turns it over, it's a chance for an extra possession for Green Bay or something like that.
Yeah.
That makes it a field goal game or something, I don't know. That's tough. But with Rodgers, I definitely think it adds like 1.5, 2 points.
Yeah, no, I agree.
For sure. But so the big question is in 2 weeks, are you going to play DraftKings for the Hall of Fame game where you're going to know 0 people by the...
Oh, I'm going to want to.
I am too. I already got the itch. I'm already looking at stuff. I'm like, God, I can't wait to play... First of all, golf has been just brutal this year.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think that's why I may burn some of those free ticket entries.
Yeah, just waiting for, I don't know. We got the 3M Open in golf this week, and I got my lineups in, and here's hoping. Also got
it takes us 1 week.
Yeah, go check out my bets if you're into golf at JDiz1617. Hopefully, no, you won't have it by the time this show is out, so never mind. But go check them out if you want to get in next week's and watch me win all the money, hopefully. All right, man. Anything else?
No, as I say every week, we're 1 week closer. I think we're talking about doing a new format this year. We'll do a betting show separate. We'll do a DFS show, and we'll have a fun little friendly competition between the 3 of us for pick'ems.
Yeah, you're the defending champ, right?
By a game or a half a game?
It was real close last year. Real close. But all right, let's get out of here. I'm excited. That's Fitchy24 on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at JDiz1617, or you can find us at Ballin Over. Again, smash the like button on your way out. 5-star review if you're listening to this on the podcast version. We appreciate everybody being here. We'll talk to you next time.